there, Marie Greene from Olive Knits here, and for today's Knitting Rescue 911, we're talking about weaving in ends and why sometimes when you weave in your ends, they come out. They don't stay put. I want to tell you why that happens and show you my trick for making sure your ends stay where they belong. Now, the first thing to consider is the kind of yarn you're using. Unless you're using a super crunchy wool that really holds onto its stitches or has some mohair, those types of fibers will definitely hold together, and when you weave them in, you don't have to do a super great job and they'll stay. But if you're using superwash or yarn that is a little bit slippery, you're going to notice that you have to do that weave in a little more carefully to make sure that your yarn stays where it belongs. And once you go to block it, you will definitely notice that the stitches start to not hold on to that strand quite as well as you would like. So I'm just going to untie right here so that I have one crossover with my two colors where I joined here, and then I'm going to weave this in and show you how I do it. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is you certainly have to adapt when you might be weaving in different colors around each other, such as if you knit stripes. So I'm going to show you this for stripes, and then I'll show you how I would do it if this were all the same color, because I slightly different each way. The one thing to keep in mind is you always want to give yourself enough extra room when you cut those strands. So don't cut them too close because it won't give you enough space. So give yourself several inches and then just cross over once where you tied on the other color. Then I just will use my darning needle and thread it. And then I'm going to do my little weave where I actually follow where the stitches already are. And it's like I rework my thread into the stitches that already exist. And the way that I do that is I'm going to start by following where I already see this yellow strand. See how it goes down into there? And then if you look closely, we have, let's see if we can get it there. We have a stitch here where the legs go up behind the stitch above it. So I'll turn this. Let's see if this gets a little bit easier for you to see. So I'm actually going to follow exactly where that stitch is already worked. By working over again those same areas, you're actually just really reinforcing that strand. If you weave in your ends and they're kind of in a straight line, and you just sort of weave up and down, up and down, up and down all the way, if you go to pull that strand and you can pull it all the way out, then it's not in there super well. So you want to do something like this, where you're actually recreating the pattern of the stitches in order to get a really nice snug fit. The great thing about this too is it keeps it nice and invisible. It's not going to show up on the other side. Of course, I'm doing this on the wrong side. And then let's say I'll just tuck it in one more spot. Usually if you go 5 or 7 full stitch revolutions in that range, 5 to 7, that's usually going to be enough. Now when you get to the end, like right here, don't cut it. Leave that, then we'll of course weave the other direction the same way, but you'll want to leave it until after you've blocked it, because sometimes there is a little bit of adjusting that happens when you're blocking. You're kind of smoothing things out and pinning them down, and so you may lose a little bit more of that tail in that process. So don't cut it all the way. Wait till after you've blocked it. Once it's dry, then you're safe to trim it down and just give yourself maybe a quarter to a half an inch of the strand left, and it's not going to come out on you. But doing those full stitch revolutions is where it's at. Now I'm going to use this strand, and I'm actually going to weave it into this blue area, which isn't what we would necessarily want to do if I were doing this for keeps. But I want to show you how I would do it if I weren't worried about staying just in the line where the color is. Then this is how you'd want to do it. So it's the same essential process, but here I actually just went along sort of a horizontal row because it was a stripe of color. But if I were going to get started, you can just kind of start anywhere by tucking under one of the stitches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out a path, and I'm going to follow that path and kind of weave up and down to get a nice secure path going. So I'm going to go up and around and then back down through, and you'll see you're just creating stitches right on top of the stitches that are already there. See that? I'm going, so I've done a couple, not too tight, not too loose. These are just a tiny bit loose so that I can kind of show you so you can really see them. Maybe I'll do one more and then I might jump to a new row. So I'll go up and then go up again, just to be extra secure. And now I'm going to follow a new stitch, revolution, and go back the other way. Now there's no exact right or wrong way to do this. You can certainly get creative and jump around a little bit, but the idea is that you are recreating stitches that already exist, and by going back over them, you're really securing that thread. See how we've done that. And then you can kind of tell, because if I went to pull on this thread, it does not pull all my stitches out. And that's a sign of a good secure weave, when you can get all of those in there and you can pull and it's not going to pull straight through. If you can secure it this way, then you're not going to have to worry as much about that yarn coming out once you've woven in your ends. If you love learning new knitting tips and tricks, make sure to like and follow me here on YouTube so you'll be the first to know when new videos are available.